We are here to honor one of the great pioneers of media literacy, Liz Thoman, who you saw in various stages of her work. And the people on this panel are all people who have known her personally, as well as used her work in our own work. So I thought maybe, especially since we're so small, let us all introduce ourselves rather than just the panel.
Good.
I'll start. I'm Mike RobbGrieco. I am currently administrator doing curriculum and technology and integration in Vermont K-12 schools. And my connection with Liz was through, well, I guess we'll tell the story when we tell the story, but I'm here because I did my dissertation on the history of media literacy, looking at Media&Values magazine.
We could ask for do we need microphones?
Do we need microphones?
For you guys? Do we need a microphone so you can hear us, or?
No, you're okay.
Okay,
It's okay.
good. All right, good.
Okay, great.
They're going to cut out the sound anyway. Dub in something else.
Okay.
I'm Hongyan from China, and I'm a visiting scholar at URI, and Renee is my boss. Yeah, and I know a lot about this from Renee, so I want to know more. So that is why I'm joining this session.
Thank you.
I'm Rhys Daunic from New York. I overlapped with Liz a little bit as she was moving off of onto other things from Namely, and we collaborated quite a bit on the transitioning the new website towards the new website. So that was my work with her.
Mm-hmm. I'm Renee Hobbs. I met Liz in 1992. That was 25 years ago at the Aspen Institute National Leadership Conference on Media Literacy.
I'm Pam Steager. I think I probably spoke to Liz for the first time in '99. My background is in human development and prevention, and I worked a lot in schools doing substance abuse and violence prevention. And I kept digging in the dirt saying, what's underneath that? What's underneath that? What else is influencing these kids? And one day I had an aha moment that the media was playing an incredibly large role, and that was giving them a lot sexier messages than I ever could in my, prevention programs, and that I needed to figure out a way to help them figure out the media. And I started Googling, and I found media literacy, and then I found the Center for Media Literacy, and I found Liz, and I called her up and I said, do I have to come to LA to learn about media literacy? And she said, where are you? And I said, I live in Rhode Island, but I'm teaching in Massachusetts. And she said, boy, are you in luck. And it was the first year that Renee was doing the Media Literacy Scholars Program at Babson, so I got to get in on that. It's your turn.
Not yet.
Oh, no?
No, Tessa can do now, and then we're going to have Tessa later.
Okay.
Yeah, hey there, I'm Tessa Jolls, and I'm one of the people who Liz really totally changed my life. And I like to say that really Liz and my husband were probably the two biggest influences on me and my career. So anyway, I continue the work at the Center for Media Literacy, and really pleased that Liz is being honored today. Looking forward to talking with all of you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Just Lori, because it was making me buzzing sound. Hi, I'm Sherri Culver. I served on the board of Namely when Liz was also on the board, and she was treasurer when I was president, so we worked very closely together.
Great. And I'm Cindy Scheibe from Project Look Sharp, and met Liz in 1996 at the first at the Media Literacy Conference, Partnership for Media Education in Los Angeles. And I'll talk more later.
Yes.
Is that the one that
I attended
Hillary
I did too.
Clinton?
Was Hillary Clinton there? I don't think so.
No.
Was she there?
She gave a video.
Oh, she did
She
do a
gave a
video.
video, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's right. I forgot about
did.
that.
So we at least all go back to 1996, if not before, attending a wonderful conference in LA that Liz put on. So I have a little clip of Liz, and I wanted you to try to feel the flavor of her. But before that, I'm going to read you from the beautiful obituary that Renee
I think you just
Hobbs-
passed it.
Yes.
I saw it.
Here it is. Because the scope of her work was broad, And it came from a deep moral place, a spiritual place. And so I'm going to read this. It's a bit long, but I think we need to give all of the details to show who she was. Sister Elizabeth Thoman, CHM, died December 22nd, 2016, at Bishop Drum Retirement Center in Johnston, Iowa. Elizabeth Jean Thoman was born to John Arthur and Gertrude Robertson and grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. She entered the Congregation of the Humility of Mary in 1964, professing vows in 1966. She graduated with a BA from Mary Crest College and earned a master's degree from the University of Southern California, Annenberg School of Communications, and also from Immaculate Heart College in Los Angeles. Liz Thoman spent her life advocating for media literacy education, helping to advance the growth of the national media literacy movement in the United States. She began her career teaching English at Lincoln High School in Marshalltown, Iowa, from 1967 to 1969, where she developed an interest in communication education. From 1970 to 1975, she served as a staff photographer for the Franciscan Communications Center, where she helped make short films designed to promote classroom discussion of religious education. To advance the communications ministry, Liz founded and led the National Sisters Communications Service in Los Angeles from 1975 to 1983. This network provided professional communication resources for women religious communities nationwide. Communications was seen as the key to changing the traditional public image of nuns and of helping people understand and value the sisters' new roles in a variety of helping ministries. It was through this work that Liz met Norman Lear, a television producer who created All in the Family, who sought her advice on a television show that would feature the changing roles of Catholic nuns. When Elizabeth Thoman founded Media and Values magazine in 1977, it was an extension of a class project that she developed as a student at USC, working under Professor Richard Byrne. The magazine was imagined as one that would explore the values questions raised by the transition from the individual industrial age to the coming information age. Working solo and later with a talented editorial team, the magazine ran for 16 years and 63 issues, tackling such issues as media and war, gender stereotypes and racism in the media, media regulation, children in media, and more. The magazine featured short articles which translated key ideas from current academic research and communications policy to inform a general readership, including parents and teachers. As circulation reached 10,000, Liz was motivated to create the Center for Media Literacy in 1989, developing a website and creating curriculum materials including Beyond Blame, Challenging Violence in the Media, which offered lesson plans, video clips, and readings designed to help students of all ages develop critical thinking skills in responding to media violence. Known as an articulate and passionate speaker, Elizabeth Thoman testified before Congress and was one of 50 media and educational speakers and leaders in the United States invited by President and Mrs. Clinton to the White House Summit on Children's Television. She has keynoted conferences in the U.S. and Canada, including the National Association for Science, Technology, and Society, National Catholic Education Association, Kentucky School Boards Association, the Southern California Psychiatric Society, and others. She presented hundreds of media literacy trainings and workshops to educators and parents in more than 25 states. Elizabeth Thoman was frequently asked to comment on issues related to children, media, and education, and was interviewed by Bill Moyers for Frontline, NBC Nightly News, National Public Radio, CNN, Time, LA Times, National Catholic Reporter, Associated Press, The Today Show, Washington Post, The Wall Street Journal, among others. When Liz attended a Canadian media literacy conference in Guelph, Ontario, and a UNESCO-sponsored conference on media education in Toulouse, France, in 1989, she was inspired to help coordinate American education at the national level to advance the development of a media literacy movement. Yes. She worked with Charles Firestone of the Aspen Institute to develop a national leadership conference on media literacy, which was held in 1992. At this meeting, the definition of media literacy was established as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and create media in a wide variety of forms. After hosting a successful media literacy conference in Los Angeles in 1996, at which many of us attended, I should not look up. From the small print. Elizabeth Thoman co-founded the Partnership for Media Education to promote continued professional development in the field. In 2001, PME evolved into the Alliance for Media Literate America, which was renamed the National Association for Media Literacy Education, namely, as the official membership organization for the field, with over 3,500 members as of 2016. Elizabeth Thoman received a number of awards and recognition for her leading role in media literacy education. In 2003, she received the Daniel J. Kane Lifetime Achievement Award from the University of Dayton, Ohio. In 2006, Liz received the Leaders in Learning Award from the National Parent Teachers Association and Cable in the Classroom in Washington, D.C. to honor a lifetime of leadership in media literacy education. Her alma mater, Mary Crest International University, honored her in 1990 with the Henderson Medal in recognition of her outstanding contributions to the field of education. Upon her retirement, Liz continued to develop her skills as a professional photographer by establishing Healing Petals, a collection of unique photographs to stimulate meditation, reflection, and prayer. A process that is grounded in feminist spirituality, Buddhist philosophy, Christian theology, and holistic health. In 2010, St. Thomas Hospital in Nashville, Tennessee, commissioned a collection of her photographs to be installed in each of nearly 300 patient rooms. Elizabeth Thoman was a member of the Congregation of the Humility of Mary, a contemporary religious community which welcomed Liz's passion to bring media literacy to the world. After retirement to Humility of Mary Center in 2013, she served in the CHM Membership Development Office. She moved to Bishop Drummond in 2015, where she remained until her death. She is survived by brothers James, Lawrence, his wife is Beth, and John Jr., sisters Patricia Young and Mary Lynn Thoman, as well as nieces, nephews, and members of her religious community. She was preceded in death by her parents. Memorials may be made to the Congregation of the Humility of Mary in Davenport, Iowa. And there will be a memorial gathering to honor Liz Thoman, Center for Media Literacy's founder, to be held Sunday, February 12th from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Pauline Center for Media Studies in Culver City,
I
California.
think we moved that to St. Augustine Church, right, Tessa? Yeah.
Yes, so it's
since we
been
wrote
moved
that,
to St.
yeah.
Augustine Church in Los Angeles, where her West Coast community will be able to honor her as we are doing on the East Coast. So there is a short clip of Liz, and we'll try it. If the sound does not work, we've got much and many
and
other
you
things.
put it on?
It should be on, on TV. It's in the Water, from her interview at Water.
And it's called?
It's called, it's really Liz Thoman at Water. If you don't have it though, I think we'll go, it's okay.
I don't know.
And we'll see if we can find it. But what I'd like to do now is I want to go around and ask the people from the panel that was constructed, and since we're so small, we could probably ask others who remember, to describe some stories of your experiences working with Liz, knowing Liz, being in the field that we're all in.
That's great. Who do you want to start?
Well, I'd like to start maybe at Sherri. Did I?
Don't start.
Only because I wasn't with you when you had your pre-conversation, so
Oh,
I
I
thought
see.
it was.
All right, so I'm going to start with
Okay,
Cindy.
sure.
Thanks.
So I brought some copies of Media&Values. So if anybody
Did you
wants
just
to
happen
look at
to
these,
have those?
just happen to have them in the Project Look Sharp library. And I've always loved that Liz, being a nun, talked about sex in the media and, had hunky man from Calvin here. So I'm going to just tell 3 short stories. So I did my master's thesis at Cornell on character portrayals and social values in TV commercials. And when I was working on my dissertation and teaching full-time at the same time, one afternoon I got a call from this woman who had a magazine, is what I understood it, called Media&Values. And she had tracked down my master's thesis and wanted me to talk about it and also write an article for this magazine. And I hadn't slept in weeks, and I couldn't understand who this woman was and what she wanted. And so it was a fairly short conversation, but she wasn't going to let me off the hook. She was determined. She had tracked me down and she was going to do this. So I told her I would call her back, and never did, actually. And then years and years and years later, in '96, I went to the media, what was it called?
Los
National
Angeles
NMEC,
Conference.
the National Media Education Conference. And there I met Liz Thoman. And it wasn't really until several years after that, when we had started Project Look Sharp and pulled these together, I went, oh, that was the woman who called me a long time ago about writing this article. So, yeah. So, but I also got to know Liz not only as very much a grandparent, so I put her name up on the wall, but she came to Ithaca, and which is way out in the middle of nowhere, to do our summer institute at Project Look Sharp to see what we were doing, and stayed at my house with myself and my daughter, and was a little freaked out because she would open the door and there would be deer in our front yard, just saying, "Have you got anything to eat?" And that she wasn't used to. But she also taught my daughter and I a card game called 13 that we played at least once a week throughout my daughter's adolescent years. I taught it to my parents. My mom played it every night with my dad the last 3 months of his life before he passed away of cancer. Whenever people would ask, I'd say, this was taught to me by a wonderful nun. And so we still play 13, and I think of her every single game. And then the last one is when my daughter was 18, I had a gig in San Francisco for media literacy, and we flew out a week early, and then went camping all the way down the West Coast and stayed overnight with Liz in Los Angeles. And it was the first time I had spent with her that was not work related. So we went, and she had the most wonderful community of people from all different backgrounds in this wonderful little apartment complex, and they cooked some barbecue stuff and had all of the neighbors come over and meet us, and then we all played cards, including 13, and she had forgotten the rules to 13, so we had to reteach it to her. So when she passed away, I told my daughter, and she has just wonderful, fond memories of Liz staying at our house, teaching us the card game, staying with her there. So really had a strong impact on me in many, many, many ways, and the definition of a grand lady. So.
I will tell a very short story, which was that in 1995, I became the head of the Television Academy. The National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences had a new media literacy project called Creating Critical Viewers.
Oh, we're all in
And
it.
Yes,
Sherri was in that project from Philadelphia. And I was appointed the national coordinator, so my job was to travel to 17 cities and meet with educators and the coordinators in each of the cities. I was appointed in October of '95, and really, it was like, what am I doing here? And trying to figure it out. Well, out of the blue, just as you described, Cindy, I received a phone call, and it was Liz, and she, who I did not know at all, and who said, I'm going to be in New York, and I'd like to talk to you. And so, around Christmas time, I remember vividly, because we were in Rockefeller Center, she came with Miss Renee Hobbs, and the two, Liz and Renee.
Sure, you really
I was like,
punch.
on each side, surrounded. And do we have drinks?
Oh, we were drinking.
I seem to recall we had a few drinks, and I was told and almost given the riot act as
Don't
to
fuck this up.
what I should be doing. You've got this bully pulpit, use it. And so it was like, okay. And I, it sort of infused my entire time there. I was there till '98, and got the great joy and luxury of meeting wonderful people many of whom are still in my life today, from these 17 cities that NADIS had a center or an office in. But I honor Liz in so many ways for her passion, for her persistence, for her vision. And her commitment over the long haul. And after that, in '96, I went to that conference and this conference, and we all became a community. And well after I left NADIS, it was the beginning of a relationship that lasts till this day, to this moment. So I am grateful, very grateful. Mike?
So I met Liz at AMLA in 2007, I believe, in St. Louis. And her reputation preceded her with me in terms of having used materials as a high school English teacher from the Center for Media Literacy, and knowing that was her work. I don't know how much I knew about that she was a nun, but I think I got that like this in my bones, because I came from Catholic school upbringing, and when I met her, there was that incredible like juxtaposition of the capacity for openness, warmth, and like personal connection. I was working with Renee, and so she was very interested in meeting me and like turning on her wide open, I want to learn about you, and then this incredibly directed force of nature and vocation, like this is getting done and I'm doing this and nothing is going to stop me, energy that was thankfully not directed at me at the time, but at the conference and the remaking of the core principles and all the things that were going on there that at that time, and I was like, oh, this is one of the nuns from you know, like it was very familiar, and so that I had that impression of this as one, and it was a realization that like, oh no, the field that I've fallen into was founded by the people who I was, you know what I mean? Like I was like, oh,
I got away from
wow, and you know, I kind of just knew Liz peripherally from being at those conferences over those years until I had, till my dissertation path fell into wanting to do history of media literacy and make sense of the disparate strands in our current field and why it seemed that there was such different ways of answering questions like what is fake news. A consensus statement idea seemed really laughable to me today. At the end of that, with the idea of how disparately we make sense of media, pedagogy, everything that goes into media literacy education through our different strands. And I wanted to contribute with my research something that would help us have some history to draw on to understand how these different conceptualizations of media literacy happen. And if the one I was thinking before this, how would I characterize Liz like for me, and having been part of trying to invite people into some part of 82 boxes of stuff that is her archive, and then doing the research on the magazine. She is one of the world's great curators, and recent new media literacy researchers like Paul Miletus and Julian McDougall are writing about media literacy as curation, as something that we need to teach as one of the new media literacies. And if there was ever a model for curation of within a framework, and I'll talk about what I see as contributions we can build on later, but within a framework and with many voices, but then trying to speak across and to and between all of them, like that's what Liz was doing, and that was so great. And so I have a sound clip that I wanted to share that one of the parts of my research was really textual analysis for the most part, discourse analysis of the magazines, but since she was the hand behind the entire run, I needed to interview her after I'd done my findings and ask her some questions. And this is one of my favorite moments from the 3 hours of interview that I had with her, where she's answering the question, what were the values in Media&Values? And I don't know how much sound. I was gonna actually try this since we're sitting here. I'd put it on, so I can make it. Yeah, I'll just sit here though. This will work. I'm used to this old school here. Kind of stuff. No, maybe not. It's not gonna work. I have to go up there. Now if you can just.
But it's good to hear her, just like I wanted you to see her, because of the power.
No, I just need sound. Yeah, I got the cable, but
3:15?
not
Or
very.
3:30?
She was here like a second ago.
It would sure be nice to hear her.
Yeah, it would.
Would.
I would really love
Yeah.
that.
Well, one thing we could do is continue to go
We'll wait
around.
till she comes back and then we'll,
And then when she comes back, that way we
Now you
we
tell
won't
your story.
lose
I really
time.
thought that
You're
mic
next. Go ahead.
trick was
Well,
gonna
Rhys said
work.
you
Okay.
didn't want to. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's great to hear you guys talk about all the substance behind the presence and the persistence that I had brief encounters with. A lot of phone conversations about the website, and her not letting go without feeling like it was going in a good position. I was always really impressed by her just being in her presence a few times in the class.
So I'll tell a story about, so I had seen the magazine floating around the Borders bookstore in Ann Arbor when I was an undergrad. And I remember once buying a copy and showing it to somebody in the communication department when I was getting my MA and being told, oh no dear, that is not scholarship and don't bother with that. And oh, by the way, she's a nun. And they just kind of like completely, they kind of like completely dismissed it. It was completely irrelevant. And what I was attracted to it was speaking to a wide audience, that it seemed to be a general interest publication, that I was really intrigued with a media, learning about the media from a general audience point of view. So I was trying to navigate university politics, and that was a very clear message, which is this shit didn't matter. Right? And so, of course, so then I get all the way through the rest of the university politics where media literacy didn't matter, and I wasn't allowed to write my dissertation on media literacy because it was not a legitimate field of inquiry. And in whatever the Guelph conference was, 1990, the Guelph conference was in Canada, and Liz was extremely regal. She's tall, thin, beautiful, bright blue. She was not approachable. She was not warm and not fuzzy, and I just did not feel comfortable. Like, I didn't feel comfortable interacting with her. And so I was hanging out with Kathy Tyner and Chris Wurzop. These are mere mortals, right? And I didn't actually interact with her. So I was really surprised when I got the invitation to go to the Aspen Institute in Y, and I thought, oh, what is this, right? And again, she was extremely regal, and I spent the first, nighttime and morning being really pissed off at her, because she had so much authority.
She did.
And she was so certain of what she thought media literacy was. And at one point, in that session, the conversation got really heated, because you know who was at the Aspen Institute? Public broadcasting people. Nonprofit activists, weirdo film artists, strange ladies like Deirdre Downs from the New Mexico Project, daughter of Hugh Downs.
Yes.
It was a strange group of cats, and there was not a classroom teacher, not a K-12 person in the bunch. So I found myself at that meeting sort of saying, do you guys care about the 3 million teachers that really should be doing this? Do you care about the kids in school? Do you want this movement to speak to education? Because if so, you're going to need to think you're going to think through that literacy word. And so I was hammering this drum, literacy, 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 and Liz was like, fuck literacy. Liz was like, media awareness, media and values, media awareness. We were all borrowing George Gerbner's concept of media environment, a cultural environment. But she wasn't, as I remember, not all that keen on media literacy. And at some point, there was a break, and like the Y grounds were really beautiful. And so, like when there was a break, there'd be a big long break, and you'd go out, you know, and walk around the grounds. And I remember like walking around, like I think Liz walked me around the grounds. Liz walked me around the grounds.
Yeah.
Right? And all I remember was when we were done walking, Liz was like, "Oh yeah, literacy. Media literacy is an expanded conceptualization of literacy. I get it." And so that was when I first realized that Liz was able to listen and learn, and that Liz didn't have it all put together. She was actually, and then that helped me to see that like she could collaborate. It's just you had to kind of take it on her terms. She had to step into a place of collaboration. She had to trust enough to really be willing to take you seriously. And that was a big aha, and once I figured that out, it was very easy to collaborate with her. Because she was a learner. She was intellectually curious. And then other people would see her ice clean nature, and I just didn't, once it fell away, it fell away. Like it was kind of like that's when it fell away at that moment. It was a wonderful experience.
So in the interest of time, Sherri, and then
Tessa.
And then we have some other things to talk about.
Let's see if we can hear her.
It works
Yeah.
now.
It works.
Oh, great.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
her, and then we'll have Sherri and Tessa.
This is where she's explaining what values means.
What the values were in
What are the values of
Media&Values?
media and values? But what it gets to, the reason you'll hear what it gets to, what I wanted to share it for was it goes from there to her idea of who the audience was, which is part of the answer to the question, which changed over time and can.
Well, people ask me that all the time. What are the values?
Was it different at different times?
Make it
No.
longer, make it longer.
No.
The values, I'll come back and say, well, the values are those of becoming the best human being you can be, of justice, and fairness, as promised by the Constitution, freedom of speech, the discussion of ideas, the representation issue. We want our children to learn how to be the best persons they can be, and we're going to give them the resources to do that. This helps teachers find how to do that in the midst of a media-saturated society.
Why were you not talking about religious values anymore later on?
Because religious values are really human values. So when you can have the opportunity to speak about human values, to me, religious values are subsumed in that. So that if you're talking about, let's say, representation of women, it's not just a representation of the Catholic sisters. It's a representation of all women, elderly, young girls, mothers who are not wed and have children. And you've got.
But you're not saying, because Jesus said that we need to treat each other as we want. You know what I mean?
Well, again, if this was going to be used in, I kept hoping.
But it was a pretty broadly Christian group for a long time. I mean, before it was beyond that to the readership, you weren't making those references.
Well, again, because I think that those references are too easy to dismiss.
For people not.
Yes, it makes it hard to raise the money.
So even when the audience wasn't beyond that group, you had a vision
That it would be.
that it would be.
And that we've never reached that.
So
if we kept using that religious
in
language.
a sense, your target audience was the actual audience, but also was beyond the actual audience.
It was the audience we wanted to have.
So your target audience was your actual audience plus.
Yes. Plus everybody in the world.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, sure, yeah, why not? Okay, that answers that question.
So she was aware that she was marginalized as a person of faith, and that her religious identity kept her in the margins?
No, what was amazing is that we're talking about speaking to religious audiences. Even when she was speaking to religious audiences, she avoided couching values in
Religious
in
terms.
religious
Wow.
terms.
She understood.
Because her audience,
Yeah.
even though she was
Human
only
values.
talking to these people, was everyone in the world,
Yeah.
which is either amazing or delusional or both of those things at the same time in the most wonderful way. So like, and I loved that that moment was the only time in this interview where I got sucked into like a dialogue with her about, which I wasn't supposed to be doing, because it's a research interview and I was sticking to my framework, but it was like, and it turned into laughter and and I just loved that kind of thing that happened in there. But it was that, as far as the idea of it, the notion that she all along had this idea that this is for everybody and this is a global thing, and I'm going to try to and that's the other part of her curation, is that she was a translator across those discourses and trying to find a common language, and she used the idea of human universal values based on American common values, or the Constitution of that.
We'll try to come back because there's so much more when we look at media and values. But I want Sherri, and I also want Tessa to have time to tell us about your story.
Well, I mean, yeah, as everyone else was talking, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I do think that your point about having earned, I definitely felt a moment where she tolerated me, and that went to, I approve, and I will work with you and help you. And she was torturous during that website. I mean, we got phone calls of all hours of the day and night for months and months and months. But the thing was, and she could make you crazy, but the thing was, it was always about making it better.
Yeah.
It was always about the quality needs to be top. We need to aim for it to be the best it can be. That was where her bar was, and that was clear. So 2 fast stories. One is that when she moved from Los Angeles to Idaho, and she boxed up her, she got in touch with me at one point and said, oh, listen, I have a box of namely things I think I should send to you. Should I send them to Temple or send them to you? I said, no, send them to my home. So this box arrives that is filled with like ancient things that nobody in their right mind would have kept. Like minutes from the original meeting in a binder with little dividers, also like as if somebody was going to write her life story at some point.
It's her legacy.
Yeah, it was hysterical. So that's one thing. The other, though, this is my absolute favorite, is about a year and a half ago, Namely was going to do an end-of-year campaign, and she was on our list of people to ask for funds. And because as all of you are around the table,
just to clarify.
yeah. So we send that our ask letter out to everyone, including Liz, and I get a card back from Liz with a small check that basically critiqued the letter. It's like, I just want to let you know, I think you and Michelle did a very good job here. It does communicate the information well. And
Where's your action line?
Actually, I just read it. I said, "Oh, this is so perfect. This is so Liz."
Other people might understand the message.
But she donated too.
But she did, and she approved. She approved. She wanted me to know, and it meant a lot that she actually did that. So I was thrilled.
Can I tell a story that's slightly related to that and
Renee.
show you a Liz artifact?
Would you? Okay. But I want Tessa to have time.
Okay,
to-
cool.
Okay,
I
sorry.
am sharing with you a piece of technology. She was such a great
Oh, yeah.
fundraiser. This is Wear a Symbol of the Media Revolution, a gift to you for contributing to our computer fund from the Center for Communications Ministries. So as you pass that along, I'm going to just share it with you to look at. These things, this was an LED blinking
Oh my
light.
God.
It was a blinking
78
light,
or
and you
79.
would.
Whoa.
She said when she would give speeches, everybody would buy one for $5, and she'd look out on the audience, and they would all be blinking.
Oh, see, she
They'd
was
be
brilliant
blinking.
about this stuff. She
I
really
have
was.
one.
Oh,
That's great.
That is great.
Isn't that awesome? So she was a master of
Replicator.
promotion.
Yeah, she did. She got it. She did get that
understood
stuff.
promotion, you know?
In the clip that we were going to listen to, she talks about when she was teaching the nuns how to communicate. And she said, we were all so naive, but they just, needed to get into shape. And because they were being asked stupid questions and they needed to be asked smart questions. And so she met with, nuns all over to try to teach them how to communicate.
So it's Tessa's turn.
Tessa, you're on.
Well, of course, hearing these stories just brings back so many memories, and definitely it makes me think about Liz as a leader, and how much she brought to the field as a leader, and also kind of the irony of her doing the photography work of flowers and healing at the end of her life, because in so many ways, Liz's career was about letting 1,000 flowers bloom, She really seeded the media literacy movement. She saw it as a movement, she saw it as a field, she saw it as a pedagogy. And, when we talk about her being a great archivist, she certainly was. And I think that's another ingredient that's really important to the foundation of a field, and, really having academics have a research base to look at through the years. And Liz was very conscious of all of these kinds of facets that are involved in really establishing media literacy for all of us. And so one of the stories that I love about Liz is that, she was an optimist. She really had total confidence that media literacy was, kind of the right thing in terms of where education was going, in terms of helping examine the idea of values and culture and so on. And so she had a phrase that I absolutely love. She always said to me, well, we're hopeaholics. And I'd never heard that word until Liz made it up, and I thought, yeah, that's true, we're hopeaholics. Because she persisted in spite of so many obstacles and so many rejections, and like Renee was talking about earlier, of being marginalized in many ways, and yet nothing stopped Liz from pursuing what she really saw as her life mission. And so I just really am in awe of that, because she was an incredibly hard worker. I mean, like Sherri said, middle of the night, whatever, there was Liz. And so I think the whole field really owes her a great debt of gratitude for what she's done. And again, I think it's so important to really be in tune with that history and how things evolved, because we really are standing on the shoulders of giants in the field, and so it's really wonderful to tune in and hear what everybody has to say, and really to appreciate what was done.
Great. So I'm going to conflate, we have 20 minutes. I want to conflate two questions. One is the issues that Media and Values covered. And Michael was kind enough to send me listings of the archives, and there were just so many clips, cable TV, the last media frontier. That'll ring some bells. That is so great. But electronic images, home video, the revolution in choice. When you go back some of these to the early days.
When VHS was new.
When VHS was new.
That's right.
Women opposing media violence, satellites explained. Men, myth, and media, and so on. And so and then of course all of these wonderful issues. So I guess what I'd like to know, that Liz brought these things to light, and I want to ask, how do we extend Liz's work going forward? Given that these were pioneering, no matter what they said in Michigan, and covered issues that were hot and new and fresh, at the time and give us a historical base from which to work and write dissertations. How do we build on Liz's legacy is my question.
I'm just gonna ask Mike to talk about that for just a bit.
Yes,
Okay.
and you were the one who really looked at this, so I agree with you, yes.
Okay.
What'd you find in this dissertation, Mike?
So, the way that I was looking at this was in terms of sort of the concepts and ideas and what the work that those ideas did in terms of how we can talk, think, and act with media literacy concepts, right? And so I looked at the things that repeated over and over again, or were conspicuously missing, and those kinds of things. And the three major themes that came out of this were media literacy constructed as media reform, health, and social justice. Media literacy as understanding representation and reality, and media literacy as pedagogy. And you know, those are in different ways. In reform, it was problematizing the media in all the different ways we still do. You'll see exactly the same issues of negative media influences that are talked about today in these magazines. Different media now, but the information overload, the preoccupation with media, all of those things are never has it been as great as it is now then.
Right.
So like that was happening, that problematization, but media awareness and later media literacy in the magazine as a construct. And when I say media literacy there, early in the magazine they didn't use that term, it was media awareness. But represented a solution. And it represented a solution early in the magazine that was very much about media reform, like addressing institutions, because it was addressing communications people, like people who ran PR for religious communities at first, and then religious leaders of other communities when it became more ecumenical in 1983. But those solutions later, when they went towards thinking about teachers and the teachers that you were talking about, everybody in education, became less politicized with institutions, although there was a presence of that, but more about individual skills and more about mitigating through deconstruction, through your own media literacy savviness to be able to see through and mitigate the effects of negative media. But understanding representation and reality is very similar to how it's done today. The classic work with representation and reality with news and news bias. And news bias as inevitable, which it would have had a very particular, specific answer to what this thing was today. And also representation of stereotypes, so deconstructing stereotypes. And in the middle there was a big piece on values clarification, which is an old pedagogy from the 70s, which privileged whatever values you brought to the table, but asked questions that made you clarify them in terms of who's benefiting, who's harmed, and how.
It was a great pedagogy.
Yeah, and then the last one is media literacy as pedagogy. Which I found that the magazine was constructed as a pedagogical instrument. So it was one of her great innovations was applying the Freirean analysis, or what is it called, the awareness analysis, reflection, action, which you know we still have with access, analyze, act, or the 5 A's, or whichever framework we have. We're still doing the same one, but applied to media experience. So it's the Freirean critical process, but applied to media experience, and it was instantiated in the magazine design.
There's
the first
reflection.
part of it, you're raising awareness with the articles. Then
there's reflection.
Then you're analyzing, and then these the curriculum kits were given the same exact framework. The lessons were, and so it was this, like, she found something to hang all of these diverse issues on in pedagogy, and within that, as far as education discourses go, there was a mix of traditional, progressive, so traditional being more transmission model, and we're teaching you about the media industries and how they work and those kinds of things, and what things are having bad effects. We're telling you that. Progressive, what do you make of this? What do you bring to this? The all student-centered stuff. And then critical, like, what you problematize this and make some real change about this. And those pedagogies were mixed throughout this. And so we often think of educational approaches as being this way or this way or this way. And this was, and I really have an affinity to that synthesis or balance of those things, because different learners, different communities benefit and need different pedagogies, different ways of acting at different times, and like that, and that can be within one classroom with differentiation. It's like that can happen, and it can be within different communities, etc. So
it gives teachers a sense of different ways of approaching.
Yeah, so I really, it was a really meaningful experience to tease out some of the ways that media literacy was conceptualized over the years.
What do you think Liz would make of today's conference with its crisp articulation of the difference between media literacy and critical media?
Yeah.
How do you think Liz would understand that, the dialectic that we heard today? What do you think that means to her, or would have meant to her?
I think if it comes from a Freudian point of view, she would probably get the distinction, but maybe not like it. That's my sense. My sense is that she would understand it, but feel that it's separating apart from the whole. That's my sense. Also, I just wanted to say, in relation to this, in the original question too, is that you had said there was nothing, this was considered popular. But actually, there is nothing in our world, if we say how to build on Liz's legacy, it occurred to me just now.
We don't have this.
We don't have this.
Right.
And we don't have a way to expand the discussion beyond the scholarly community and those already committed.
In a way that's not a book.
In a way that's
right?
not
Something
a book.
that's timely.
It's
telemedium, but
Telemedium doesn't.
Maybe it's time for Namely to start a magazine,
I think
an
so.
online magazine.
Boy, that would be such a
I really.
So old it's
Cindy, do you think you could write an
article for that?
I would write an article on my master's thesis on that. So
We all could write articles for that.
you could frame it
But
on your
really,
portrait.
the audience
It
is
would
different.
be a
It's not
broad-
it's not a scholarly
That's it.
journal. It's
Right, something that's
something
not
in pop
scholarly.
culture.
On the other hand, she was really careful to draw from scholarship.
Yes.
So that
I don't mean neglect
she
it. I
wasn't,
mean,
so she
expand it.
would describe research in ways that the general population could do things. But her stuff is written for parents. 5 important ideas to teach your kids about.
Listicle.
I want
Yeah,
to tell you,
it's
and
a
she was great at getting things on
It's
one
BuzzFeed.
page so you could
She was.
photocopy them and hand
She
them
was.
out to
And
people.
she-
I mean, really.
on purpose
I
as
can't tell you
well.
how much I've done
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yes. So
And
it's something to think about.
I think that would be a wonderful tribute.
Because we-
accessible.
Accessible.
Beyond, and not necessarily giving up the different views on what media literacy is. Because I think for Liz, she would want that discussion played out, to have people write in accessible ways. What do we mean by critical media literacy, and how is that different from media literacy in the classroom or as literacy?
But people who are exposed to truthiness and certain terminology and fake news and the things that we've begun to talk about, to build on what our issues are now, but really make it accessible so there's more dialogue. I'd love to hear Tessa's viewpoint too on this, Tessa, if you want to add like the expansion of Liz's work.
Yes. Well, I think that certainly the mission of the center is always to take the theoretical and, really expand on it in a way that was accessible to everyone. So, the idea of theory translated into practice, translated into really accessible terms for people. And I think that's something that, we've always done and that we've continued to do. We do publish a monthly newsletter that gets pretty long. I mean, my guess is that in some cases it's probably about the same size as Media&Values magazine was, depending on how many pages we have in a particular issue. But the whole purpose of that is, again, not to be totally academic, but to use some ideas that come from academia and then expand on them and tackle different themes related to media literacy. So, we've got a pretty sizable audience for that. It's a free publication, and we put it out every month. So definitely, I think the idea of, going in that direction, having something that's accessible for everyday folks, that's really where we want to be.
So
and
Tessa?
I see that as part of the whole movement.
I'm sorry, Yanti just whispered in my ear that we have 3 minutes. And so I would like to challenge us all to think further about this question of sort of building on Liz's legacy, what we've learned from her, and maybe what we can carry forward. I don't know that we'll have time to talk about it in any more detail today. What I wanted to end on was healing petals. In the beginning, looking at the sort of moral lens that Liz directed all of her media literacy through. And it was in your quote that you had, and it's just was who she was. She was a nun, she was spiritual, she was a passionate educator, and she saw things in those frames. Thanks. So this site, Healing Petals, while it is no longer selling Liz's photography, the work is so beautiful. And on the site, and I'm trying to find it quickly, I should have before. On the site is a wonderful description of what Healing Petals is, and it's a collection of unique photographs to stimulate meditation, reflection, and prayer in a process that is provided, is grounded in feminist spirituality, Buddhist philosophy, Christian theology, and holistic health. And I think the integration of those things, the breadth of vision that we could be talking about those 4 things, Buddhism, holistic health, there is the room that Liz had, the range that she had, I think is something we need to keep fresh for ourselves. So thank you everybody for coming today and honoring Liz Thoman, and may she rest in peace, and may our work continue and flourish, building on what she taught us.
Amen.
Channel her. You got it.
Thank you, Tessa.
Thank you, guys.